This is Prophet of Zod, 7 questions for Christians. So let's start with the first one.
When did you become a Christian and why?
So the short answer is birth, and another answer I could give is christening when my physical body was put into the water. And I guess I can answer another one why I kept becoming a Christian or being a Christian, I should say, is because of my father. My father had an experience with God, and my father is usually a truthful man, like I would say 99.9% of the time, and he gave me ample evidence of this. So, yeah, I'm a Christian because of that.
Now, this is a pretty obvious question, and it's one I would ask a Christian to honestly consider when discussing their faith. But while it can be easy for us to convey it as a gotcha meant to corner them into admitting that they were just born into their religion or whatever, it's important.
And what inherently is wrong with that? I mean, what inherently is wrong with being born into your religion, particularly? I mean, if I ask you, when did you start wearing clothes? You would probably say, well, it wasn't really my choice. You know, my parents put me in clothes. None of us are born in with jeans on us, but we do accept that wearing jeans and clothing is a good idea, even though it's a cultural thing at best. So I don't know why this is like a gotcha question or anything. I mean, nothing's wrong with being born into like a culture or idea. When did you start accepting that your milk has to be cooked and pasteurized so you don't have disease running all throughout your body? I mean, who cares?
Important to avoid doing this. Yes, we might suspect that they mostly believe in Christianity because it's the religion of their culture, and maybe.
Well, not really, I guess. I mean, we live in a secular culture, hell, a secular country, if you want to look at the Constitution. So I guess it's the religion of your culture. Does cultures really have religions? If I could ask you, like, and there's thousands of cultures in this beautiful country of ours. I don't think nurses just start putting marks on your head, put a little cross on your head when you're a newborn baby and says, now you will be part of the culture, you know. But hey, that's just me.
That they were locked in during early childhood.
So?
But this might not be true for everybody. And even where it is more or less the case, each person's story has a lot of nuance based on their own personal experience.
I don't want to toot my horn, but mine does. And it's less of a personal experience of me and more of my father. But my father is the patriarch of my family, so I accept his word.
Reducing it to a disrespectful sounding simplification will put them on guard and might get them either shutting down on you or defending themselves with easy, simplified, pat answers, which doesn't encourage the
I
kind of
guess.
conversation we're.
I mean, do you? How complicated do you want this answer to be to satisfy your feelings? I guess. I mean, it all depends on that. I mean, hey,
Looking for.
many times the most simplest answer is the best answer.
But if you instead ask this in an open, friendly, sincere way, actually being ready to hear them and make them feel heard, you can ask questions that help them think openly about how and why they became Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really becoming Christian. I mean, do you become a person who like drink pasteurized milk, or do you accept that that's just how it does? I mean, do you accept drinking clean water that doesn't have any bacteria in it, or is it just how it is? Like, do you want to drink I don't know, like fucking groundwater?
Sure, they probably didn't do so because they heard amazing arguments for God,
Mm-hmm.
and I doubt they chose Christianity after a careful exploration of multiple religions. However,
Well, the great thing about Christianity, I mean, Christianity doesn't really have a monopoly on the Abrahamic God. He shows up in Judaism, Islam, Sikhism, Mormonism, a whole myriad of religions. But and hell, Christianity doesn't even is not like a mono faith. Like there's thousands of types of Christianity. So it's utterly a complicated thing. But even if you choose God in Christianity, you have to choose between the myriads of uh, of faiths under various names like Catholicism, Protestantism. So it's very complicated. It's a choice and a choice.
You're not going to immediately convince a Christian of this, and doing so shouldn't be your goal. But maybe you can get the juices flowing so that, over time, they start introspecting more about a process they might not have thought a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? Maybe you'll come away with a richer understanding of the person and their faith journey as well.
Jesus.
If you're not ready for that, indeed seeking it, I'd say you're not ready to be an honest, respectful participant in the conversation.
Amen.
Number 2. What role have arguments for the existence of God played in your understanding of your faith?
Well, I guess a big role, like, there's a lot of things that would make sense if you had a God. Like, for instance, if we come from like our if we have a common ancestor with apes, how come our noses are flat? How come our noses aren't flat, I should say. Humans are the only like creatures on Earth with a chin. This strongly presumes that we had a creator that made us in our image. It's a simple argument, but it will do. Maybe if I was trying to impress people, I would come up with a more complicated argument, but it will do.
I find this a good follow-up to the previous question, as I honestly don't think arguments for God have changed many people's minds about anything. In general, I see apologetics mainly as after-the-fact rationalizations designed to help people feel better about what they already believe.
If it's not going to change anything and it's basically irrelevant, why bring it up? If you mind me asking. All right, I'm going to skip to the next question.
Do you think similar forms of argument, or any line of argumentation, would get you to consider the existence of a different God? Or of any non-Christian supernatural phenomenon?
Sure, if they found Jesus Christ's body, then that means he didn't descend to heaven, and that means one of the other numerous religions that believe in the Abrahamic God proves that Jesus wasn't the Son of God. So yeah, I guess I answered that question. I don't know. Bye. All right, so let's see.
How do you account for testimonials from other religions?
Well, without testimonials from other religions, Christianity would not exist. For instance, without the testimonial of like Jewish like prophets, Christianity would not exist. Like that, for the most part, created Christianity. So testimonials from other religions, or shall I say religion, is the reason why Christianity exists. So in the basis, it fits into the Christian prospect. And even though I'm not a Catholic, they have testimonials of from their saints, our shared saints, which help push the belief in other faiths in Christianity. Protestantism. Yeah, I should say Protestantism. So yeah.
This flows pretty naturally from question 3, in that both ask Christians
Amen.
to think about whether the things that reinforce their beliefs don't reinforce other religious beliefs as well.
I guess it depends
More than
on the
arguments for
religious
God,
belief,
Christian belief is based on testimonials, which can include anything from the classic Christian idea of a test.
Well, not really testimonials. There is physical evidence. Like a lot of people thought that King David didn't exist. Then we had evidence that King David exists. Then people are like, of course he existed. Well, it would be strange if they based it off a fictional character. So yeah, kind of also physical evidence. Texts that have been saved for thousands of years. Stuff like that.
Testimony, You know, the
Amen.
story of what they were like as a believer, how they came to Christ, and how their life was changed afterward,
Amen.
as well as anecdotes of times they believed supernatural things happened.
Amen.
In conversations with believers I grew up with, I often run into tales of how they were about to get hurt but felt themselves mysteriously brushed away from danger, or how they spoke to demons and cast them out of people or whatever. And I'm convinced these stories are usually told by people who honestly believe. So
Amen.
breaking down the logic of what actually happened and pointing out ways they might be mistaken can get really personal, depending on the story.
Well, I don't know. You don't go into full detail of how a person cast out a demon. So I can't really break down whether it is or isn't true because you don't really go into like testimonials. I guess I'm going to skip to the I guess the fourth or fifth question because these are all subjective, and if you're not going to break down the stories, I cannot tell you how it is or isn't true, I guess. All right, here's number 6. Amen. Let's do this.
Have you ever felt the presence of God? If so, what does it feel like? And how do you distinguish it from the emotional or calming experiences that accompany music or meditation?
Well, I don't really meditate, and I guess music. I mean, it's very easy to like distinct God from music because I listen to like hardcore metal and screaming and stuff like that, and I think the pulsing drums, the deep voice, the hitting of the electric guitar is very easy to tell from the smoothing nature of God. Like, when his presence is felt in you, like as a person, like that would be it. So maybe you could have specialized it as in gospel music or spiritual music. Maybe that would could have fit because, there's a deep difference between the two. But it's the presence of God is moving for me. Maybe it's scary for other people. Like, when the Israelites saw like God, they were like scared and stuff like that. But it's depending on the person, I guess.
Many evangelicals would say that they're not in a religion and that they instead have a relationship with God. So this
Yeah, I think you mean like spiritual people because, that's, I see a lot of spiritual people say they're not in religion, they're just spiritual, so maybe that's it. But you know what? You live longer than me, I presume. So maybe you met more evangelicals, I guess. I don't know.
being the case, they must interact with him. And this interaction largely comes in the form of feeling his presence, depending, of course, on the denomination, church, and person. In fact,
Well, I guess having a relationship with somebody doesn't inherently mean you interact with them. Like you can just talk to God face to face on the phone and stuff like that. It's more or less like that things are going well for you. Like, here's a subjective story. I gave an uncle of mine $75. He told me he would pay me back 150 the next day. And it was in the presence of my mother and my little brother. And he didn't pay me back. And everybody was clowning me, just pretty much dogging me. And I prayed to God and asked, why did you have this happen to me? But then, like a month later, which is today, it turns out that he paid me back. And just in the nick of time because I was broke. Like I was flat broke. I didn't have any money. And that 150 was amazing. And I saw that God knew that I would be flat broke at this point in my life at the end of the month. And that's why he made sure that my uncle did not pay me like at that time, because if I was paid like a month ago, I would have probably wasted that money and would have been broke now. So it's really like that. Like you see like things fall in place. Like there's thousands of anecdotal stories I could give you about how I prayed to God wondering how he could let this happen or that happen, but really it worked out in the end. So that's kind of like the relationship. I wish people could have a relationship like Moses did when he saw God personally, but even Moses did a few mistakes and God made him pay for it. So maybe it's good that we don't have that direct punishment or success from God. Like if I could give you the anecdotal story. But yeah, let's go to the next one. All right, we're at lucky number 7. Amen. All right, so 7, the number of completion. Let's see what this is.
7. How do you distinguish the voice of God from your own thoughts?
All right, so this is the easiest one. My own thoughts is usually sinful, like, have sex before marriage, steal, probably try to swindle, do stuff like that. And God's thoughts is the total opposite. Wait, because you could get the herp from, messing with this chick before marriage. She's loose, you already know. She ran through more fellas than a football field when the ball is in the air, stuff like that. So God's thoughts in my head are pure and of his nature, while my thoughts is naturally sinful and doing the opposite of his nature. So that's a pretty cool like contrast, I should say. But yeah, stuff like that. That's how.
This one is so similar to number 6 that I'd almost consider them parts of the same question, but they are significant enough.
I definitely do. I definitely consider them like parts of the same question. And by the way, I went through like this whole video. It's just that I'm skipping most of it because I don't want this video to be like 20 minutes to like prolong it. You can watch the original video if you want. But I think I answered his questions. I thought it would be super hard, but it turns out these questions are pretty easy. Please leave a like, subscribe, share this video. I'm out, guys.